Hi, Tzili.
Hello, hello. Hi,
Hi,
Tzipi.
how are you?
Hi, Michael Carmine.
Yes.
So Michael, first of all, I'm a witness for so many students. He's an incredible professor. They cannot, they cannot fake in his class. They cannot pretend in his class.
It's true.
You will think he was a colonel in the Israeli army because with him, it's straight. I mean, no foolish trick, no bullshit.
Give
That's
us
it.
example. Give us example. How is to be a colonel in the military?
Yeah, right.
Well, I can tell you how I lead my students. I am measuring them on their meritorious behavior. I give exams with answers that there's only one correct answer. It's a science. They're factual questions, factual answers. I teach science, essentially, motion picture science. So there's a right answer to what I say and to what I ask. And I mean, the only vagaries of anything I do would be the lighting, but I give them some quick lighting diagrams that we work off of. So they're working off lighting plans. We're working off the science of the cameras and the science of the infrastructure, because now these cinematography has turned into, in many ways,
Photographer. Yeah.
So
yes,
cinematography turn into,
in many ways, it's turned into computers with lens mounts.
oh,
So a
okay.
lot of the stuff we're doing is we're having to anticipate what the image will be afterwards. So what we're seeing is not always what we're getting, especially if we're shooting raw file structure. We have to anticipate it. So there was a time in the transition from film to digital where there was a short time. I mean, I was in the news. I worked at CBS News for years as a young boy, and in that period, we shot video. What you saw was what you got. And actually, I was old enough to, they actually were still shooting 16 film, but I was
Wow.
not so for news, but I was not at the point where they were letting me shoot anything. So my ish point that I'm trying to make is in the first transition from film to um, electronic, you saw what you got, but now we're into a new age where um, you don't necessarily see what you get. You put a LUT on it or a lookup table on it. You put it what you think you want it to look like in the future, but you don't always see what you're going to get. So you have to anticipate it. So it's in many ways going back to film, because I shot film for TV shows for many years, where we would shoot film and we would have a couple of sleepless nights until everything was processed.
And to the lab. No, people don't
Yeah,
know. I just
yeah,
want to make sure they know what you're talking about. So with film,
right. Film was going
shot,
to
we
a
didn't
lab,
see until they came back from the lab, and only then we could.
right,
But if you didn't
and
have
then
money, you asked for a work print, which of course were not like the negative, right? It was not the same
no, even
quality.
those days,
So even when you got it from the lab, not always you could ask.
no, it didn't look,
No, but
it didn't
I didn't
look
have
properly.
money, so I used to ask. I paid for like 100, if feet just to see what it's looked like in color, and the rest I did in black and white because so the old
Well,
thing was
that's
different.
right. We would do clip tests in the
Yeah,
beginning, but film was you'd always wait. You could wait, and then I would always say, because I worked for everyone in California, but I was in New York, so I was doing television shows that took place in New York, so I had to shoot all the New York atmosphere for them, for like 10 TV shows for Warner Brothers and Disney, and I guess some Fox too, although I hate to admit it, but it was Fox when it was different, and but we would. So I'd shoot the film. We'd literally put it on a plane. We'd buy an airline seat because they had that kind of money. They would literally put the cans of film on the seat. Someone would drop it off at the air. Yes, literally.
Cuckoo.
sure,
Yeah,
this is the
yeah.
original. Not good.
They'd buy a coach seat. They'd give
Yeah,
it to an airline employee.
and
I
they
think it
put
was
ladies
Delta.
like me, in the
Yeah,
back of.
Delta Air would take it and they put it in physically. They put 15 cans in the seat, or five in the seat, 10 in the front of
Right.
it. And we wouldn't really know until they called us back and said, "Oh, it looks great," or "Oh, that didn't look good," or
Right.
we don't like that shot," or "What happened there?" So we would shoot way more than we had to, so that they could find it. So I was always thinking of it as like archaeology. It's in there. All the footage is in there. You got to find it, but it's definitely in there. So I'd always make sure that when I ended and I sent the footage, that I knew that it would be there, because that was one thing I knew I had to do. Otherwise, they wouldn't call
But
me
you've
anymore.
also had to make sure that there is enough that they can edit, right? When it
Right.
comes to
So I
edit,
always overshot and would
right?
shoot things. I was always nervous of shooting what I thought was perfect. Okay, this shot's great. Well, let's do it one more time.
To be on the
I
safe
always
side.
did it. Always did it a second time.
Michael, I want to take you back to the students because I'm curious. Like, let's say
Mhm.
you teach them what has to be done under all the circumstances, and then you're very firm and you give them one question, they need to give you one scientific answer. What if somebody is coming with revolutionized idea that doesn't follow your thing? What do you
Well,
do?
that's great. If revolution, because I'm basically, I have I have a bachelor's of science degree. I have a master's of science, and my degree was in motion picture engineering. My thesis was in motion picture shutters. No one even has a motion picture shutter anymore. It's so obsolete. But so I have a science background. So I'm asking science questions. If they would like to push the science further, I'm all ears. But if they're talking about politics, you're going to talk
Aesthetics,
about politics
Aesthetics.
and
No,
quantum
not
efficiency of
aesthetics,
of a sensor.
aesthetics.
Techniques or the way they
Oh,
look.
aesthetics.
Yeah.
So aesthetics, we get to
Oh,
aesthetics.
what did them to
In the
apply?
beginning, we do a little bit of it, but they don't understand the aesthetics. It takes some understanding. What I try to do is with recreation of paintings, recreation of images. So I'll
Okay.
give them images to recreate because they don't have an idea of how to create aesthetics until they learn because they don't really see it. They need to see it.
How
They
can
need
it
to
benefit? I don't.
copy it.
Can you explain? People don't understand, will not understand. What do you mean they cannot see it?
Well, they see the photo, they see the image, but they don't understand how it's made. They don't know how to, basically, I deconstruct the creation of the image. They don't understand how the image is coming at them. Yes, they like it. Oh, I like that. Why? Where's the lighting? Where's the camera? What is the lens? How are we moving the camera through space? They don't deconstruct that part. So I need to go through a lot of that in the beginning to deconstruct the pieces of the image. So people think of one frame of an image as something that's one frame. It's a snapshot of time, yes. But there's a lot of elements to that one frame that we need to create: the lighting, the texture, the movement,
The
and
colors.
yeah, of course, the colors and the way we're going to represent it. The lookup tables is what we do now, what we call color grading, how
Ah,
we get the emotion. So basically, it's the emotional feel. How do you translate emotion into pictures? That's what we do.
right.
We take emotions and we want to turn it into an image. And we need the image to translate the emotion within 1 second. That's the big trick. If you're not translating the emotion within the moment they see the image, in many ways you failed. And you've got maybe two more moments and then they're turned off. So need to be logical with the moment and the feeling and emotion of that image at that point in time in the film. If it's a sad moment, it should have the sad. If they're, is the character what I like to call a photographic arc? Is the character mean in the beginning and friendly in the end? So we can start cold blue and warm them up to orange. We can use colors to create the emotion. Are they
Also
really
the
warm?
type of lens, right? Like
Hmm?
type of lens. If you
Yeah.
make wide angle, it's
We have to be careful with lenses because we can't change necessarily lenses throughout the film, but we can change filters. No one's using filters anymore. I just spoke with one of my old students who's now got a film at the Cannes Film Festival. He's going next week. And we were from the filter generation. I was very adamant about filters in his day. He graduated in 2007. And filters are a great thing, but no one is using filters anymore for some reason. I'm not sure why, but they're not. They think they can do everything in post with Resolve, which is a
right,
program, a software
yeah,
program.
right,
And they're not using filters. The advantage of filters is you bake in the image. No one can mess with it afterwards.
right.
So there's a lot of ways we can do it. So I'd rather do it with filters than lenses, is the
Michael,
short
which
answer.
film did you film? Which film?
Which sets?
Films, I did second unit for, I'd have to look at a list. The biggest one is probably Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I did Jumper was a big one for me. I need to look at the list.
You
City
know,
Hall.
City Hall. Okay.
I did the intro for City Hall. I did Fools Rush In. It's all on IMDb. I don't know if you
So
have IMDb.
if we ask you juicy questions, it's scientific enough for cinematography?
Yes. I did a lot of TV, so that was a big thing. So I started in TV with a series called Murder, She Wrote in
Yeah, sure.
1990.
Sure, we grew up
92. It
with
was
it.
actually after, yeah, after the first Iraq War, because CBS, I covered that for them. So Murder, She Wrote was my first big transitional film in the early 90s. And that got me to all the TV shows for Warner Brothers. And that led to
So what the
everything. So if you
difference
look at
between
all
shooting and TV
And
or
film.
in a feature,
or motion picture? No, TV, like
okay,
film or
the TV show, the TV series that I've worked on they have very tight schedules, um, a long shooting day. We've got to cover 45 setups a day, and you've got to get through them. You cannot not. And especially I was on shows. I was on Friends for 6 years. I was on all of Mad About You. I was on, and those shows would air on a Thursday, and we were frantically shooting footage on Tuesdays to get it on that plane so they could get it by Wednesday and cut it in the show for Thursday and air
wow.
it. So it's very tight. Yeah, you would think they were better off, but it was amazing how last minute we were because things would change, the story would change, they'd write a little something different and they would change it. We were panicked. Um, Feature films was nice because you don't have to do 12 shots a day. It's very leisurely. I
Yeah,
still don't know.
but the thought behind each shot, it's much deeper. Like,
Yes,
there is more like long takes or dollies or, pan, dolly in or dolly out, right? So
right.
it takes a lot of time.
Well, there's a lot of discussion. There's a lot more discussion in feature films of what the meaning is behind the shot, how this shot is going to get us to the next part of the story. Is it even projecting or propelling the story or the in the right way? There's a lot of discussion on stuff like that, and there's a lot of discussion on, the lighting would have to be perfect. See, they would tolerate lighting for the sun, they would tolerate, okay, we can't shoot for 2 hours because the sun's in the wrong position. So fine, we will do something else until the sun is perfect. In TV, they used to make fun of me when I was a young boy. They'd call me Rembrandt and they would harass me because I was a young kid and they were these old men in the 90s, literally smoking cigars. And they're like, come on, Rembrandt, hurry up. It's a TV show. It's a comic, but let's go. It's a comic book. We're one step up. We're barely a TV. They would hurry, hurry, hurry was the big thing. Whereas you didn't get that in features. They would say, here, so in features, they would give me a list,
Of
16
course.
shots.
Right.
We need these 16 shots. Yeah, of coverage. You got to go get this list, maybe 5, whatever it was. Like City Hall, I think I did 15 or 20, but they used 6. So, but
What's
they'd give
the
me a list of what they wanted.
what's the difference when you film like regular actors and big stars? Do they come up with different demands?
I think I have only had good things with big stars. They are different, but they treat the camera crews like gold. Don't be sassy and don't be flirty. I always say to my assistants, you can't date these stars. It would always go badly for you. I mean, because a lot of they're young, attractive males, right? And they're strapping young men. And the actresses all, are enamored, some of them, with that. And I had one in a show who the actress was definitely crossing the line with him. And he's like, this can only go one way with you. If you follow through on this, you will be fired.
But it worked for
Because
Julia
at the end of the day,
Roberts, Michael. It worked for
you
Julia
either get
Roberts.
married or you get fired. There's 2 choices. That's it.
Wow,
So
wow.
Right.
that's how it's
So
going to go. But the stars have always been great with me. I mean, they're just wonderful. I mean, engaging, wonderful. I mean, you don't cross a line, and they know the biggest thing any actor wants is someone to make them look good. And if they know that that's your mission, above all, no matter what anyone tells you, whatever the director says, you're going to make them look good. Who's not going to like you? How would they? want to burn that bridge. So I think that they're actually wonderful, but you must keep division of, or I don't know,
Sense.
a sense
Yeah.
of priority has to be.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me, so you get a script, okay? And so how do you look at the script from a DP cinematographer point of view? What you're doing actually? Or do you expect the director to be the first one to guide you, bring you different paintings,
Well, I usually am. I mean, they should be doing paint. You should be having discussion about painting, some visual. We have a thing called film grabs, frame grabs. There's services you can subscribe to, and you put together what your impression of what the film should be or the TV show, and you take all these frame grabs from previous made shows, and you send it to the director, and you have a discussion.
Also in
And
feature?
that's how you get the job.
Yeah, also.
Everything. So all camera folks are doing this. We have these, you have to create a visualization before you're hired to see if they like what you want to do or if they like you.
Right.
Did it
Or
happen that the director didn't understand what you meant, or what did you want to show, that you had to explain and go over, or did
always explain. I have always explained and gone over, and that's why I think teaching is great because you are teaching. The directors have ideas, definitive ideas, and you need to be able to teach them what you think your ideas are. I had these long discussions with Doug Lyman, who did actually did Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and it was all about lenses, which was, no one has to this date ever been, first, it was incredibly knowledgeable about lenses, and he wanted specific lenses, and what was my attitude, and I knew I was being tested. Why do you like Zeiss? What's Cook? The Cook S4s, which lens, it was all about
I ask
feeling
my
me out
students,
on
don't do that. I tell
lenses.
them, don't do that. I said, you take a cameraman, you want to make sure that you can,
Oh, I lost you.
that he will, oh, okay. Now you okay? You're with me? No? Yes? Can
Yeah,
you,
I'm fine.
yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
I'm with you.
okay. It's
I'm
you.
with you. Yes. Hi, I see
Okay,
you.
so I tell my students, you talk to the DP, of course. You tell him, what's your vision in terms of visuals, or can you bring him even scenes to show, I want something like that, or a painting, or whatever. I told them, don't tell him the lenses. I thought it's not professional to tell the DP the lenses. I mean, leave it up to, if you have good relationship and you feel that he really can understand how you see it, and then you can have a discussion. I don't think that you should tell him what lenses to use.
Well, some directors are more knowledgeable than others. I mean, if a director's knowledgeable, so Doug Lyman shot Swingers, and he shot it. He was the director and he was the camera operator on it. So he literally shot that whole film on his shoulder, and he was like director camera. So he knows a lot in that case.
Bertolucci also was a
Um,
cameraman, right? Bertolucci.
yeah.
Yeah.
Who?
Bertolucci?
Bertolucci. I mean, last time I said it, yeah.
Bertolucci. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
You speak English?
Yes.
This is what I ask my students. You speak English? Yeah. So yeah, you have, but most of
So,
them are
but
not.
well, there's two ways to go about it. I mean, that conversation could go really wrong if the director is doing it, using it as a power play, then that can
Right.
go really wrong.
Yeah.
But if you both are looking to create the same result, then that's fantastic. So you can actually, basically you're putting things up to offer, you're putting things on display, and the director says, I like that, I want that, like that, I do like that. I mean, that's what you're doing so that when you start, if you have a lookbook, you've already agreed on the basic look. And I like to keep the lookbook with me, whatever those
That's for
images
other
are.
people. What is a lookbook?
Oh, a lookbook is that thing that I referred to you where you go to do frame grabs. To get the job, you've got to put together a lookbook. And that's this thing, in the olden days, it was actually pictures you'd put in a book. That's long gone. But you take frame grabs, you put it in like a PowerPoint, and you have annotate the PowerPoint. Like I would like, the female lead to look like this when we introduce her. I would like the the male to be this, and you take frames from other films and other TV shows that have visualization. So it's instantly right there. So when they see it, oh yeah, I know that film. I know the feeling of that image. I know exactly what that is. I know what you're trying to do. And then you agree to what the overall film's going to be in each scene. And then you have the lookbook that you've agreed upon. Then it's very easy in terms of just fulfilling that look.
Yeah.
And then we're
Michael,
all agreed on it.
who was your hero wanting to film movies? Who was your hero that you wanted to become like that, or that you learned a lot from?
Vittorio Storaro.
Okay. Yeah, right. What can I tell you?
Still is. I mean, he's the best. I think he changed when he was a young man versus
Tell
an
the
older.
audience what he did, what films he
Oh, well, let's see. He started. He did Apocalypse Now. He did, which we first started working on color theory. In his color theory, basically, he was taking Goethe's science of color theory from 1600 or 1700. Someone's going to tell me I'm wrong,
Yeah.
but somewhere many years ago, and he was talking about light and color and how each stage of your life was represented by color. So there's a definite color theme in each stage of your life. And then he did not little the one with about the Chinese emperor, the leper,
Right.
is where he really
Last
fulfilled
Emperor.
it. Yeah, and his last film I thought was really good, but for some reason we can't talk about it. The one with Woody Allen
Ah,
which was his first real film, and he was a hardcore film guy who was never going to do digital. But then he's a natural for it because he gets to paint with light. He was the first guy to paint with light. Don't do color correction. You need to do color correction in a certain way to tell the story. So if it's daytime, no, don't just do daytime. It has to be a feeling of color of the daytime. If it's a hot day, a cool night, so he would apply color, and he actually came up with his own colors, color gels. He had
happen
his own
usually
system
you
of
shoot
color.
the film and then you go to a special place when you sit down and you go and you correct the
Time
color
it, yeah.
time. Yeah. So
So in
you
the old days, they would
do it
time
after
the
you
color of
finish
the film.
shooting. Right.
Right, after you finish shooting, but he would use colors so that right away in the dailies, you would know what the colors were. And he was one of the first to use a lighting dimmer board on a feature film, which is something from theater. So
Right.
he took a theater dimmer board and put it on a film, which no one had done this yet. And he was controlling and dimming the lights and literally painting, adding some foot candles here and adding more. I'd also say Gordon Willis is great too. He's
But
an
tell me something.
American.
Yeah. So an actor, you given a script to an actor, so he read it,
I
and
don't give scripts to actors. I do not do that, but
oh wait,
someone.
and then they start after they get it few times, they start to like do beats for them, then divide it
Actors, yeah,
into
that's their job.
dramatic beats and stuff like this. So you take how you handle
Well,
it?
so I look at the scene, look at it, whatever the scene is, it says what time of day. It says day or night. So that's the simple part. But then I like to say, well, what time of night? Is this night at 9 p.m. at night when the world is alive, or is this 4 a.m. when the world is not alive? So there's different times of night and different feelings of night. Midnight for me is the changing point. So the world is alive and awake at 11, but at midnight it slowly falls asleep and all the world changes in terms of its lighting.
So this
It's
is the
still,
philosophy for me. Philosophy, this is more not the technical, but the aesthetics of the behind.
yes, the aesthetics is the
People
first.
don't think that
If you can't,
yeah, people don't think that
you have to isolate the.
Right.
No, it's the biggest thing. You're isolating the time of day and what happens generally at that time of day and that time of year and that location. So 9 o'clock in California feels very different than 9 o'clock in New York.
Right.
There's both the same 9 p.m. They're both the same 9 p.m. But California has that completely different look and feel of texture and light than New York does. New York has a much darker, grittier feel. Things are dark.
Also think about like a leitmotif for each character, like this character, uh,
Yes, you got to be careful with leitmotifs, though. So you
Leitmotif is
can
you
only do.
attach, yeah, I just want to explain.
Yeah, so what I was talking about, photographic arc, if you put too much of that, it has to make sense, and it has to make sense over the arc of this TV show or the film. It can't snap from scene to scene because the audience will never forgive you. The director will kill you too. So it has to be able to cut together. So you can slowly change the arc and then come down. So whatever that motif is, it has to make sense overall for the film, and you have to be consistent with it so that you work your way into it and then work your way out of it. The big problem was with diffusion filters in the old days, 10 years ago. You would have to, so you always want to make women look beautiful, make them look 10 years younger. Maybe they were drinking the night before and their face is bloated. What are you going to do? So we can use diffusion filters to kind of soften the skin tones. We can use longer lenses. We can move away from them. But if we do too much diffusion on a woman and then we cut to the guy, it's a different movie.
Right.
It's like they're out of the movie. It's like, uh-oh, what movie am I watching? Did I not pay attention? So you have to work your way in with her and then work your way out and figure out where this scene is. If it's just with her, then you can do one thing. I think a big thing is the introduction of your female lead. If the audience needs to love this person, we need to love them instantly. They need to be beautiful and wonderful right away. If male or female, if the guy is, we're going to love him forever, we need to see that. In the first frame that we see that character, if we love them, we have to love them. That's the introduction. You'll remember that. So I think it's important to, and certainly with the female leads, you have to make it look beauty in a moment of magic. Even that's where you can go a little further, moment of magic as an introduction to the female lead. And the men too. But you don't want to soften the men because we live in a society that we don't like to admit to, but men are, quote, rugged, and they are not, they should look rugged and not be like Vaseline and soft. But
Right.
women are always the dream, and actresses love to, be dreamed up a little bit, softened up. And I think, culturally, we say one thing, but viscerally, I think we believe something else.
Yeah.
It will never
I mean, I
change.
think
Yeah.
It-
Will
it
you
will never change. We could pretend to say it will never change. I've
Everybody
never
full of
had a,
stories, but it will never change.
So do you
no.
also, when you look through the viewfinder, I mean, now
Which
it's
we don't do anymore
no, I
because
know,
we're
but
doing film.
I cannot use another. I don't want to use another. I pretend anyway. So are you using, is the camera looking differently at different characters? I don't think actress, I mean, the person.
Different
Character,
characters?
do you think
No,
about
because I go back to daytime, go back to time of day. Time of day is where it all begins for me. If I being true to time of day, then I can shift from time of day to the character. But I got to be true to time of day because this movie's got to make sense because it's a night. They're at dinner at night outside in Israel. Not that I ever did that, but I think of a scene that was shot in Israel recently. And it was a time of day. It was night in Israel, and it looked great with a lot of different colored lights and painting like a warm orange, and there was some blue, and it was graded wonderfully. But it goes back to time of day first, then to what the scene needs. So the time of day is being loyal to the script and the story, and then what's the scene need? What does the scene need? What's happening here that's really needed?
That's
And then of course, I think young people get frustrated because they shoot too much. I can shoot any scene in any film and anywhere. I know everyone's going to hate me for this, but you can do it in 5 shots. You could do it in really 3 shots, but 5 shots is leisurely. So if you don't get focused on how much coverage you need exactly,
people don't
and
know
you
what is coverage, but
how to tell the story, the little pieces of the puzzle that tell the story of the scene. So I think 5 shots can do it, one scene, a dinner. It gets me to the story, it gets me the characters interact. Either you want to shoot it with one master and then inserts, or you want to shoot with multiple
start to
masters.
close ups or 2 shot and this
Yeah,
is
it's like that close up, the medium shots, the wide
shots,
shot.
right?
But I find that new young people shoot way too much wide shots to get people into the environment. They don't need that much. The story will handle it. So no one really cares. Like they walked in the front door, they got to the middle of the room, they then got to the table. We don't care. just get me to the table. So you could just pan a little or something. So I think the time of day is the main thing. The dialogue that's running, is this a pivotal scene? Is this the scene where there's a major conflict? Or is this a plot development scene where we need to know what they're saying and we need to be able to hear it and understand it? Is this like the big reveal? Or is this the big secret that the audience doesn't know and the characters do know and we're going to find out, or maybe we aren't going to find out? So what's happening here? What's revealing to us?
So do you think that students should be, I don't know how to say it really in English. I mean, they should know about art. They should be knowledgeable about the history of art. They should be knowledgeable about movement, right?
And they should be knowledgeable about emotions. I keep saying, if you don't understand emotions, then you're in trouble. You know, I say this, and I don't know who I'm going to insult, but I think they all need to be in therapy. They all need to understand who they are to deal, so this way they learn what emotions are.
But I also think that I all need to know that they're being in service, because you all serve the story, you serve the actor, you serve the... It's not, of course, because sometimes they want to be, you know...
Well, this is
No, that is a problem. See, a lot of cameras...
If you say that all his films look the same, that's a problem. No?
Yeah, it can be. Depends. Well, if that's your problem, then people will hire you based on that one look, and you'll do that one thing over and over and over. But in some ways, the service is the story, and that's where you can get into trouble. Camera folks can get into a lot of trouble with that if they, and especially my young students get into trouble where they'll start shooting footage for their reel and not for the film.
Right.
So they're shooting a very tricky shot that's very elaborate and wonderful that will look great for their resume, but doesn't help anyone else.
Right.
And those are what I think you're alluding to. That is a problem that
That's what I mean.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's have some fun. Give us some nice stories, a little bit anecdote that you had fun or interesting.
Well, when I was young, I interviewed Katharine Hepburn. That was fun, and she made us in her house. She wrote a book, and so I was with. It's funny. I think I was with Tal Lariche, and I was the junior cameraman. I think I was all of 22 years old, maybe 24. He was the senior, so we had two cameras, and it was for Israeli TV. Or I think it was. But it was a broadcast for everyone, so we got inside. And so what we shot was used by every service. It was for a service, news service. So I think everyone used it. But I realized that she never acted a day in her life. Katharine Hepburn was exactly who she was off camera as she was on camera.
Oh, okay.
That was who she was. She was sweet and wonderful. She served us soup, and it was like a whole crazy experience. When she had it was on 48th Street. She had a townhouse there that she had bought with her friend, who she referred to as her friend, which was Spencer Tracy.
Right.
You know, her longtime married friend. I think, well, he was very Catholic, but I don't think she was. But anyway, it was their, place. She was incredibly charming, and I realized that she never really acted. She was exactly who she was, which I was
acting in her everyday life.
Yeah, maybe, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, okay.
Right.
Sorry.
Tell me, did you also, you're a cinematographer on news?
Yeah, I did news. I covered news stories. I worked for CBS News. We were the first Iraq War. I was at the UN. They would send us all over. I didn't do the combat. I was slated to do combat for CBS. They're going to give me a 21-day schedule to go to Iraq, but my family was very upset, and they did not want me to do that.
Because when you are a DP on news, it's you actually decide where the camera goes, what is.
Oh, everything. You're basically
right.
Yeah, you're basically doing everything, and the news anchor, is just providing the dialogue for it. Providing the narration, providing whatever the story is. So it's all coming out of what they write. but
Yeah,
you do the whole thing. They match you with, huh?
I asked you if you like
Say it again. I
documentaries,
lost you.
documentaries. You
I
say
do. I started in documentary. I started with nature. I started in documentaries, nature and animals with the Wilderness Society, and I did my first paid work was with nature stuff with 16 millimeter cameras and osprey, eagles, and I went to the Adirondack Park, and they wanted certain animals, and we hunted those animals with cameras. We weren't killing them. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, and that's how I got into CBS was through that. When you're younger, you do crazy stuff. I would stand in water, up to my waist for 3 hours to get this osprey to feed in this pond. So I just wait there with the
Yeah,
camera. You have to be very still
yeah.
for the.
Right. Do you have a dream director that you would like to work with?
Uh, I'm at the end of my career, I think.
Why? But you're only 48,
Okay.
give or take.
He's generous.
Um, yeah. She is very generous. A
Why?
dream. I would. Uh, I miss being on a hit TV show. That's what I miss.
Yeah.
Because when you're
But
on a
why?
hit
What's
TV,
the difference?
when you're on a hit TV show, everyone treats you like somehow you're a genius, even though you aren't. Somehow that there's magic in the air. The studio is frightened to do anything. They don't want to upset you in any way because there's like magic and they don't understand it. No one understands the magic of a hit TV show. They just know when it's there, but they don't know why. So it's just you're treated in a different way, like you're, godlike, and you're not. But it's just people suddenly listen to what you say, even though it was the same nonsense or good stuff as you would have said before, but now they're interested.
Are you
So I
working
miss
on something now?
I'm working at NYU. I'm working at the
Ah,
film
well,
school.
I told you already, it takes so much of our time.
Yeah.
There
Oh,
is
it
not
does.
much time. It's becoming more, I think the students are, I don't know what, you have to invest more in your students because they are different than,
Right, and I'm head of the camera area, so I have to manage that, all the teachers in the camera area and the curriculum. And I'm the associate chair of technology, so stuff like that comes up. Equipment, we need to update our equipment. We don't have, it's always a fight for the money and what are we going to get? We have a couple of shekels, but we need to buy a lot of stuff and we don't have enough money always. So because of that, it eats up a lot of time.
yeah.
Do you
So.
find that the students today coming with more knowledge than the old days?
More knowledge. They're more knowledgeable about computers, certainly. They're not more knowledgeable about stuff, about lighting. They have no clue on lighting. Lighting is still and always will be the problem. And we're also in a transition with moving from traditional tungsten lights to LED lights, and no one knows how to deal
I
with
don't
them.
know what it is. People don't understand what you say.
Traditional lights are tungsten movie lights, and we're moving to these new high output LED lights that you have like in your living room, but now they're much higher output to shoot films with. And they have color ranges, there's bicolor, full color, and they have intensity. So we're dealing with new textures, new intensities, and new color. All three of those variables are in this new light.
You have to
And
keep up to date all the time.
yeah, every 18 months, the technology changes.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, it's crazy.
24 months.
Does it take a certain personality to become a cinematographer?
I think yes, there's two parts of it. One, you have to like technology and gear and stuff and equipment. You have to really enjoy that. And you have to like always be like building a camera at any given point. So I'm always in the process of building a camera or breaking a
Oh,
camera down or
oh,
that has nothing to do with work, but just like I'm trying to work on some new camera or some new device. Right now I'm working on something. So you have to just be innately and love that kind of science, basic science part of it. And then on top of it, you have to like the aesthetics. You have to really understand that those tools are, paintbrushes and paints, and you need to know how to use them. And if you don't understand how to use them, you'll never be able to get the effects that you want or the impressions that you want or impressions or expressions that you want from them. which is, so it's a double side. You have to be artistic. Some people are very artistic and they need help in the technology. Some people are very technological and they need help in the artistic.
And what about temper?
Temper. Well, when I was young, I had a temper.
Oh,
Yeah, that it didn't help you. It doesn't help you. Temper is, you have to be pleasant to everyone. You have to be nice to everyone.
You have to
People
have
need
patience.
patience. You have to understand it's not personal. You have to let go of
But
what you,
don't give up on your ideas if you are right.
right. And eventually people will stay, realize you were right. So you have to, people only need one reason to fire you or not hire you. They need 100 reasons to hire you. So you have to not give them that one reason not to be hired or fired.
right. I
So
talk with my students
you're
about,
always dancing on eggshells,
right.
essentially.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Especially,
you're also a medium between the producer and the director.
right,
Yeah.
If the producer and director hate each other,
right.
now suddenly you're in the middle of a divorce. You're
Yeah,
the child in a divorce.
terrible situation.
Yep.
I talk to my students a lot about how to externalize the internal, in terms of, yeah, wow, you're
I
smart.
like this externalize internal.
The
Uh,
internal. I mean, how do I look at you now? What kind of action, subtext, whatever, will reveal to me how you feel without you showing it to me, right? So I have to externalize it. And I do tell them that the camera can do it sometimes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
And it can do it easier too, because it can go in close. And
yeah,
the camera shows you emotions that are very subtextual and feeling. The camera can read an emotion that someone has that's internalized.
right.
It really magnifies your personal. So performers, if they are not happy, but then they have to perform a happy scene, it's going to be awful.
Yeah.
No matter how good the acting is, they really have to get into this mindset of whatever it is. So,
Yeah.
because the camera sees into your soul.
Right. Yeah. I really believe in it because I give them, for example, the moment in the piano. She cannot talk, and the piano was taken away, was left in the ocean, near the ocean on the beach, and
Yeah.
she goes all the way up. And all she wants is to jump to this piano. And actually, the camera is doing it. Camera is like, zooming in fast, like taking over her emotion and her yearning to jump. And then you cut to almost at the world spins around her. She's so there is
Yeah,
so
the
much.
camera, the use of movement can tell the story. The use of
Right,
should be telling the story. The
right.
problem is when people use the camera and movement and it doesn't really propel the story and it's just to be a great cinema trick.
No, I'm sorry. I'm really talking about really almost like a subjective camera. The camera is
Yeah,
only
absolutely.
felt the emotions, right?
That's when you're doing it right.
Right.
You get it done. As long as you stay on, that's why I go back to emotions. If you're working with emotions, trying to translate emotions into pictures, you won't go wrong anywhere. You'll always be right. As long as you stay on emotions, if it's the right emotion too, it's got to be the right emotion for the scene.
Yeah.
But as long as you're staying with that emotion and translating it into pictures, and that's your prime directive and your prime job, really, that's your only job, and you're going to do it with lighting, camera, and movement, then you're fine. But you got to stay. That's why I'm big on the emotions. You got to understand emotions. The film is about emotions. If the character cries, the audience doesn't. I always go back to this thing that an old guy, this old director told me once. He, so we have to make the audience cry. We can't let the characters cry. We need to let the audience cry. So you always have to don't give the emotion to the audience. I mean, give the emotion to the audience. Don't give the emotion to the character. Make the character get close to it, and then let the audience go the rest of the way. And that was he was big on
Oh,
emotion.
interesting.
Nice. What do you think the future of the film world?
Film versus television. So I think the film world is problematic because they're in a transition. when I was young, they were making films about stories. There were a lot of films about stories. There was a thing like a small budget film could sell, and you could make a $5 million film or a $2 million film, and you could make a profit. And they had very little special effects, and people wanted to see them. Not in America anymore. Now everything has to be Dune 2, some comic book thing, 73, some race car thing, 20 million, 14. So there's all these serial films that are these big, splashy, overexpensed, 200, $300 million films, Mission Impossible 14, I'm being exact, it's the same film with a new number, and it's very expensive to make. They lack real stories, and it's all about blowing things up in front of you or taking you on a chase. And I think because the films are so overpriced, there's no room to make a film. Like, you could never make Driving Miss Daisy today for political reasons and for every reason. That film could be made. No one would approve and give that film a budget. But in its day, there were like 30 of those films.
What's the balance between the industry in China and here?
Well, China is censorship. They censor all films. So China is making films for themselves because all of their students come, I'm training them to learn how to make their films for themselves. But they censor all our films. Every one of our films either will be in there or not there. And any big film that we send is no guarantee that anyone will see it. They sense any anti-Chinese or even remotely, then it's done. If any hint. So that's a heavily censored market. And they're not making films. They've fully moved over to digital.
It doesn't sound
But
great.
we at NYU, we really encourage them to really have whatever cinematic vision or pictorial vision, and really I know it's big name words, but I mean, there is something behind them, like, find a voice, whatever. And then they go back to China. Our students, we have so many Chinese
is in
students,
everything.
and then go back. No, if they go back to France or Italy,
No, China in every
and
field.
they go back, and then, they cannot really use a lot
That's
of
right, because all it's about visualization and no real storyline.
Yes.
So I think the only future, or the biggest future, current future, is Netflix. They're the only ones who are successfully making money and making media, making both films and series, television shows. Everyone else seems to be either breaking even or losing money. Disney is losing money hand over fist, because in the old days when they had a weak film, they could sell it to Netflix and make money. Now they put it on their service and they're losing money, and they don't have a way to recoup the money because they have to put it on their Disney service. So they've really lost their way. So Disney used to make small films, but they're done. So there's no one out there. There's no, Miramax of today. And
there is what's the name of the Israeli producer that is there for 5 years now? They have
right, Bergman.
Yeah,
something.
Ron Bergman. No,
Yeah.
no.
Or Arnon Milchan
No,
was
No.
But
No, I'm
Arnold
talking
now is
about
not
a
in a
young-
good, yeah.
a
He
younger
made
person.
fantastic films, Arnold.
did.
Really fantastic.
But
And
he
he
did
did.
big films, and
Right.
this guy and his partner, they making small films, and they work together with the Netflix and with
Right.
others.
Oh, it's
and-
true, with
yeah.
Netflix.
But
right.
I think that's the only way to make it is to work. Netflix is the only one who knows how to do it. And if you go from not a US market, you might be more successful. Like,
Right.
I think you could make small films in Israel, because you'd have an Israel market that you could release it in. I don't know how many people are in Israel these days. I don't know what the total population, but you have a built-in market there. And then how many?
9 million, but including the Arabs.
It's not a very big market,
It's still tiny then. It's still tiny. I think everything goes in a cycle. So the cycle that we're just finishing is the ridiculous, over-the-top, over-budgeted films that no one really wants to see anymore.
Right.
And so now
Yep.
we need to find the new cycle, which is the story, the small story. It will change once a small film becomes incredibly successful. That's how everything changes in this industry. Easy Rider was a teeny film for $140,000, but it became such a success it changed the industry. So it's got to be something that changes the industry.
Yeah.
And that's how it works. It changed the audience. The audience has to want to go out and see it no matter what.
The
Yeah.
audience has to want to go out.
Yeah, and that's the problem. Well, we have that's societally a much bigger picture. We have a population of kids that are not dating. They're not, they're not doing drugs. They're also not having sex. They're not talking to each other. They're in, they think that if they talk through their phone to someone, it's an actual relationship. What I see is, the young men are playing video games and the young women are on social media, social network, and
Right.
no one's leaving their house.
I see.
Yeah. So, Michael,
Yeah.
if I ask you to come to Israel and shoot a film of mine, will you?
I have nothing to do.
You
Sure.
come.
I don't
Because
know.
you have
I'm looking
nothing
for
to
something.
do. Or because you want to shoot in the light of Israel. I mean, they have this
I
light,
do.
or maybe the
I do,
Gaza light.
Israel. Yeah. I would love to go to Israel. You kidding me? I have. You know what? I have nothing holding me back from going to
Oh.
Israel. But how many days? Their thing is, Zippy, you think I can do magic by myself? I need a crew. I need a crew.
What do
I
you
need
think we are in?
cameras.
What? You think we are in the Middle East? We have NYU students there who took your classes.
Really?
Of course. Yeah.
And I need lights and I need a lot of stuff. I can't
You'll
make.
have, I will, the last film I did for $140,000. 21 days.
20, oh, that's fast schedule.
And I think 8 cities. Not
8 cities?
Sure,
Wow.
a few locations in each, right?
I hear the traffic is not the way it was when I was a kid. I hear the traffic is a
Nothing
nightmare.
is like
Yeah.
like
Right. But also we'll talk about it.
well, anyway,
We have to finish, so I'm not going to bother him.
but
I will not ask him what he thinks about the protests,
let's leave it today.
about the campuses, and anyway.
You're going to ask me. I have definite opinions on that. I have definite opinions on protesting the campus. I don't know if I'm allowed to say, but I have definite opinions.
You can say
Say it will be the last.
I think that we, in American universities, we stopped teaching real things and we started teaching ideology. And that's the problem. If we went back to teaching, real things, science, technology, engineering, math, Socrates, Sartre, real things. Instead, we went to this whole, we're teaching ideology. Many schools are teaching ideology, and we have ideology as the fundamental backbone to whatever the subject is. And I think it's now turning into, and I think for a long time, American University has been doing this, and now we've turned into this snake that eats its tail. Now we're just seeing the logical step of teaching ideology in a university instead of actually teaching them,
What do you mean by teaching them ideology?
Ideology, meaning teaching them politics. We're just teaching them politics and have opinions on politics. Instead of teaching them, maybe you should know Marcus Aurelius, what he was doing, and who is Marcus Aurelius and the Stoics, and who was Sartre and what was he saying? And basically, it's this postmodernist communism is what we started teaching 20 years ago, and everything turned into boiled down to a very simple theory of everyone's an oppressor or an oppressed. And once you get into those simple, I hate to say simpleton concepts of just you're either an oppressor or the oppressed, now you're into ideology. You're not into the complexity. What human being is that simple? Human beings are, for the ages, incredibly complex. We are so bizarrely complex. And how do we can hold love and hate in both hands at the same time. We can both love and hate things at the same time, but not in the current American ideology stuff where it's like it's either this or that. We can't hold two concepts at the same time. And that's the problem. And now we're the snake that eats the tail. Universities are the snake that eats.
Outlook. It's different. So we'll have to think about it, and everybody will have to think about it.
Yes.
What can I tell you? Thank you for coming.
Thank you,
My
Michael.
pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did.
I did. It was fun. I'll always feel nervous afterwards. It'll be like, what's going to happen there?
No. I think that really you open up a door.
Don't run away. Thank you, everybody.
Don't run away.
See you.
Okay, I won't run away.
Thanks, Tip.
Thank
Bye.
you, Tzipi.